Well, a great scoop today from the lads over at Guido Fawkes revealing that Home Secretary Priti Patel said that the UK should have shut its borders back in March 2020. Now, in reality, what happened is that between March and June, the UK did not impose a travel ban, close the borders or quarantine restrictions on international travellers arriving in the UK. But Guido Fawkes getting this recording showing that Priti Patel, I believe this was last night, telling Conservative Party supporters that she disagreed with the timing of the government's border closing in response to COVID, say that she'd been privately advocating for a border closure since last March. And as Guido remarks, you know, this expressly breaks collective cabinet responsibility. So quite a big story was made during a Zoom call, as I said, between the Home Secretary and apparently the Conservative Friends of India group. The exact quote being, on should we have closed the borders earlier? The answer is yes. I was an advocate of closing them last March. Now, one of those to respond to this story was Nigel Farage, saying what a pity Boris Johnson didn't listen to the Home Secretary, Priti Patel. And Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer questioning Prime Minister Boris Johnson about this today at Prime Minister's Questions.
Last night, the Home Secretary told a Conservative Party event that, and these were her words, on should we have closed our borders earlier, the answer is yes. I was an advocate, says the Home Secretary, of closing them last March. Why did the Prime Minister overrule the Home Secretary?
Mr. Speaker, I think it was last March that the right honourable gentleman, along with many others, was actually saying that we didn't need to close borders. But as usual, Captain Hindsight has changed his tune to suit events. We are facing, and it's interesting that his first few questions were about a computer glitch in the Home Office, Mr. Speaker, which we're trying to rectify. We're in the middle of a national pandemic, and this country is facing a very, very grave death toll. And we are doing everything we can to protect the British public, which is, I think, what he would expect. And that's why we've instituted one of the toughest border regimes in the world. That's why we insist that you have to get a test 72 hours before you fly. There must be a passenger locator form, which you have to provide, Mr. Speaker, and then you must quarantine for 10 days or 5 days if you do a second test. And it's all very, I'm delighted that he now praises the Home Secretary. In fact, a change of tune from the right honourable gentleman, and I'm delighted that he's now in favour of tough border controls, because he wasn't last year, Mr. Speaker, and indeed he campaigned for the leadership of the Labour Party on a manifesto to get back to free movement, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, he talks of hindsight. What the Home Secretary said last night, Prime Minister, it's not disputed, is that she was saying last March, this is not hindsight, she, the Home Secretary, was saying to the Prime Minister, you need to shut your borders. She was saying it. So I repeat the question that the Prime Minister avoided. Why did he overrule the Home Secretary, who claims that she said last March that we should shut our borders?
Mr. Speaker, we've instituted one of the toughest border regimes in the world, and it was only last March that he, along with many others in his party, were continuing to support an open border approach. And I must say that the whole experience of listening to the right honourable gentleman over the last few months has really been like listening to a weather vane, watching a weather vane spin round and round depending on where the breezes are blowing. And we're getting on, Mr. Speaker, with tackling this pandemic through the most practical means that are available to us, rolling out a vaccine programme that has now inoculated 4.2 million people in our country, and whereas he would have joined the EU scheme, if I seem to remember, he attacked the vaccine task force, which secured the supplies on which we are now relying, and he stood on a manifesto, Mr. Speaker, at the last election to unbundle the very pharmaceutical companies on whose breakthroughs this country is now relying. They continue to look backwards, to play politics, to snipe from the sidelines. We look forwards and get on with the job.
There you have it, guys. What do you make of this? I know in the comments below I've seen some criticism and also support for Priti Patel when it comes to her response to the surge in illegal migration on small boats, but would be keen to hear from you. What do you make of Priti Patel's stance that the border should have been shut from last March? What do you make of the fact that that didn't happen Do let me know in the comments below, guys. And as ever, if you've enjoyed this report, if you found it helpful and informative, please do give this video a big thumbs up. We'd really appreciate that. Hit the subscribe button and the bell so you don't miss the next video. And of course, thanks for watching.